Good evening and welcome to the Norwood Board of Selectmen's meeting for the 9th of April, 2019. Before we begin tonight, I just want to let you know that we are being recorded and archived for future broadcast by our friends at Norwood Community Media. So let us begin with a pledge of allegiance to our flag, followed by a moment of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Tonight we have two appointments. Our first appointment is at 7 p.m. It's a public hearing with Mr. Abdul Shulman of 100 Winfield Street. Mr. Shulman is here to apply for a Class 2, which is used car license at that location. And secondly, we have John Apria and Katie Neal Rizzo, along with the Norwood High School Environmental Youth Coalition, to talk to us this evening. So we'll start with Abdul, if you'd like to come to the table, please. And you may also. Yep. Before we get started, Mrs. Mulvihill, would you read the notice, please?
Application for Class 2 motor vehicle license. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Norwood will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, April 9th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in Room 34, Selectmen's Chambers, Norwood Town Hall, on application of A&M Auto Sales, 100 Winfield Street, Norwood, Mass. for a Class 2 motor vehicle license. Board of Selectmen, Paul A. Bishop, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Shulman, would you identify yourself just for the record and tell us what your proposal is this evening?
My name is Abdul Shulman. I was hoping to see if I can get your blessing to get the Class 2 used car license.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the location and so on?
It's a house that we own on Winfield Street. We've had it for over almost 15 years now. And I reside out with my wife and my 3 kids. And I get along with my neighbors. I have no problems, no issues with the town whatsoever. And I'm just trying to see if I've been in the used car business, but I'm unable to go to the auction without having a license. So that's my main purpose of trying to get a license to be able to go to the auction.
So basically, for the people at home that don't understand what this means, it's not going to be a car dealership in a residential neighborhood.
Absolutely not.
You operate off the computer at your home. You buy from one side and you sell to another.
Yes, sir.
On the computer.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have any intentions of having any vehicles in your yard or on the street?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Hajar.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to clarify what the chairman just said.
Yes, sir.
No intentions with regards to on the property. To the right side of your property, there's a good gap where a car could be stored. We're not going to get any complaints from neighbors that you got a car from an auction, you came in and you stored it there for 3-4 days before you could get it registered or sold to someone who would register it and drive away with it.
I promise you that's not going to happen, sir.
Okay. And do your neighbors know about this proposed business?
I believe they do. I think even they got letters in the mail.
Okay. Because it's difficult that you're at the end of a dead-end street, so you're the only one there. So
I don't understand,
that
yeah.
is my concern.
I
And I'm
respect
sure
that,
if we get
absolutely.
one complaint, then,
I don't understand.
You're on one now.
It's not
So-
going to happen because I don't intend to have any cars parked over there.
All right, so where are they going to be stored? Will you
Good.
buy them from auction? Where do you take them?
Usually I leave them at the auction. Lately, most of the time I ship my cars to Lebanon, most of the time.
Okay.
If for any reason, I have like 1 week to leave the cars at the auction. If for any reason it's going to take more than 1 week, my brother have a garage in Quincy next to the police station. It's called Quantum Auto Repair. Sometimes I'll leave cars over there with him.
Okay. So by what you're saying, this is clearly just a home office situation in which you are online looking at vehicles and or going down to the auction and you're doing your paperwork at home, but there's no transactions as far as vehicles and everything else. So, okay.
That's a good way to summarize it, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Just so people at home understand, all the abutters have been notified. There's been a public notice published in the newspaper and so on and so on. So everybody should have been notified by now.
Yeah, because even my neighbors, I get along good. We just chit chat. A couple of them told me, they goes, we got a letter. I go, you're free to show. It goes, there's no need for us to show because we're not going to object it.
Well, we as an organization have
Oh, absolutely.
responsibility
No,
to
I'm
publish
just
it.
saying what.
So it's not on you. We have published it, so I just want everybody to know it's out there.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions from the board?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Plasko, I'm sorry, sir.
Following up, I guess, on the line of questioning we've heard so far, On your application, number 7, give a complete description of the premises to be used for the purpose of carrying the business. You identify an area to the left of your garage, next to the fence. What is that?
You know, I think I misread the question because the question said describe your property. You know, I didn't put that note because I'm going to park cars there. I was just describing my property.
Doesn't say anything about describing your property.
Well, like I said, I don't remember. I mean, like I said, I have no intentions of parking cars there because when I applied, it was made clear to me that no cars are going to be parked over there, and the license is going to specifically say no cars.
We've had a few applications for wholesale operators working out of their houses in residential areas.
Yes, sir.
I vote against them. I don't believe that's a proper place. And cars end up being there. It's that experience, so.
Like I said, I think I think you guys should give me the benefit of the doubt if there's any complaint. You know, I mean, I'm sure it comes up for renewal every year. I mean, if there's any complaint, or if, I'm sure the inspector sometimes they go by to see if there's any cars parked, you know, because, I mean, I'm sure of that until somebody complains or I get caught in the act, then I can see my license not being renewed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney?
Just one thing I didn't, you say you'll ship them to?
I usually ship cars to Beirut, Lebanon.
Oh, okay, very good. Overseas, thank you very much. Mr. Plasko and Mr. Hajar followed up pretty well what I was looking for, so, thank you.
And if I could just follow up on what was said earlier. Question number 7, I'll read it out here on the application. Give a complete description of the premises to be used for the purpose of carrying on your business. And your answer in your writing is premises that will be used will be to the left of my attached garage next to the fence. My house is on a dead-end street. So I don't think it can be said enough times. There will be no cars there.
Absolutely.
On your property or on the street, registered or otherwise. And that's the stipulation. If we find out at some point in time that you're storing cars there or have cars there in violation, we're going to call you back in. You know how it's going to end up.
I'm not trying to make any excuses. Maybe when I fill out that application, I hadn't spoken to the people downstairs, the building. He said he could give a license, but with 0 cars. Probably that's why.
So that's fine. We have 6 other licenses around the town.
Yes, sir.
In residential areas. We don't have any problems, so.
Okay.
With that
You're
said.
not gonna, I mean, I promise you, you guys are not gonna, I mean, you gentlemen are not gonna have problems with me with having cars over there.
Okay, anything else from the board? This is a public hearing, so if anybody from the public would like to make comments or ask questions, now is the time.
I live next door to Abdul. I just want to make sure that there are no cars on the street or on the premises at any time.
And we all agree with that, and I think we've made that point clear.
Would you identify yourself, please?
Paula Humsey, I live next door. I live 94 Winfield Street.
Thank you.
And if you should see a violation, by all means, notify this office.
Motion to close the hearing?
Do I have a second? Motion to close the hearing, and a second. All in favor, all opposed, unanimous.
Mr. Chair,
Sir,
I make a motion that we approve the license.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
The vote is 4-1 in favor. Abdul Schulman, you're all set? And we'll work out the paperwork very shortly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
The second meeting tonight will be Mr. John Prayer and Katie Neal Rizzo, if you'd like to step up, please. We all have your paperwork here, and I know there's a slide presentation, so if you'd like to begin.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Katie's going to kick us off.
So I'm Katie Neal Rizzo, this is John Aprea, and this is Arena Shara. We are here to talk to you guys about Earth Week coming up this month. So Norwood Earth Week is just a continuation of what we did last year. We'll try to zip through this because I know last year we kept you a little long. This is a collaboration of all the town departments, committees, community groups, and we're just trying to raise awareness about environmental issues and sustainability initiatives across town, specifically during the week of Earth Day.
Yeah, we're pleased to announce that there's over 20 participants that we're joining with, so different groups and organizations across town. You can see the asterisks are the newer participants, so we've almost doubled in size compared to last year, which we're very happy with. You can see in the bold are the co-sponsors for this year, so the DPW, Mark Ryan's been helping us tremendously. We can't thank him enough. And also Susan Clare from Together Yes. Most importantly, the Norwood High School Environmental Youth Coalition. We've been meeting with them for probably the last 6 months, talking about sustainability and planning different events. They're doing a whole series of Earth Day related activities at the high school, and they're partnering with us on Earth Day at the Common. So they're here today to talk more about that.
Could you give us a little description of exactly what the Environmental Youth Coalition does at the high school?
So, just to introduce myself, I'm Alrina Shara. I'm a junior, and I'm basically the treasurer of EYC. And EYC stands for Environmental Youth Coalition. Basically, we have an intent of spreading awareness and knowledge about the environment and how to basically help with the effects of global warming or climate change, or just steps towards becoming a more sustainable and develop the society in a more effective way. Saying that, we promote kind of the awareness that leads the Norwood High School community to be more quote-unquote green.
I'd be glad to hear that. I'm glad it's happening at the high school at that level.
Of course.
Katie, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention there were a couple new things that we're doing this year at the fair itself. And one of the things we're doing, we're continuing on with the bike swap, which we did last year, which was really successful. People can drop off a child's bike that has been outgrown, and then somebody else can take it. We'll have some friends on hand who are skilled in bike repair that can take a look at the bike to make sure it's up and running. And then we're also doing something new this year called the Fix It Station. We have George Curtis from PC Overhaul is going to be there. He'll be able to do a complimentary checkup on your laptop, computer, see if it's salvageable, or give you some advice on what can be done to make it run faster. And then we'll also have a few people on hand to make small fixes of small household things like a lamp or a jewelry box, things like that. So we can try to keep as much stuff out of the trash as possible. So back to the Environmental Youth Council at the high school.
So a couple of notable things that we have done as a collective group. Last year was our first Earth Day cleanup, where basically we were able to clean the Norwood High School grounds, and we made our way to St. Tim's. It was pretty successful. We got Whole Foods to sponsor us, got some free fruits. It was really cool to see that in action. We've also done during the holidays, we found a way to wrap presents in such a way with newspapers and other recyclable material, make bows, string out of them. It's really a fun time because teachers and students, they all just give us their presents, and we're just able to wrap them, come together, and really just talk about how this is helping the environment and how we're able to distribute gifts as well. We've also done some upcycled bracelets with Together Yes, and we've sold those at Norwood Day. We've also been at basically pretty much all of the last Norwood Days. We do different activities, whether it be honestly anything, but really just the whole premise is to spread education about the environment, and especially when on like a high school level that can connect with the community. Saying that, we also have water bottle filler stations at the Norwood High School, and we have 2 as of right now. And instead of having like the typical water bubbler, we have like an actual filler for the water bottle, and it says how many water bottles you've saved. And so I think that's really cool to see that in action as well. There's also been an increase in recycling awareness, because I feel like that there's a common misconception that the high school doesn't recycle, and that prompts a lot of people to just throw away recyclables in the trash, which obviously isn't good when there's a big recycling bin outside the school. And I can't stress enough just basically spreading education and awareness about what we can do to help and preserve the environment.
It's all very encouraging to hear.
So what we are currently working on, we have 2 Norwood High School cleanups in April, one of which was conducted last Saturday, and I was responsible for organizing and basically with all the foundations of it. That one was with Student Council, and it was a part of their Service Saturday programs, which is basically each month there's a different initiative, like a service initiative that students can sign up for. And the one that I organized was pretty effective. There was about 25-30 people. We picked up a lot of trash, a lot of recycling. People were able to come together. It was a really great thing. And we're also doing a cleanup on the 28th of April with Progress Norwood. And we also have a fair after that day. And if you guys could come, that would be really amazing. There's also, we're trying to increase recycling bins on campus, especially on the track during the summer. There's a lot of athletes who practice, work out. Of course, there's going to be a lot of water bottles, so that would be really effective in having the janitors clean that up. We also have implemented a webcast with GCP, and basically it was a World Water Day webcast where students could go down during one of their periods in class and participate in a webcast talking about water and sustainability and how to, again, preserve the environment. And we also have water bottle sales, which right there, stainless steel, $5.
That wasn't scripted.
It wasn't. As you can see, mine gets a lot of views.
Yeah.
And then following April vacation, the week of April 22nd to the 26th is our Earth Week at NHS, and basically, yeah. And basically our plans for the future is we want to make more of an impact on more of a community scale. We're taking significant strides within the high school community, but we would really like to extend that to Norwood as a whole and get involved with legislators, especially like town government, and just really push the movement of sustainability.
Thank you. I just want to interrupt for 1 minute. I think Mr. Howard has a question.
Question, yes, related to these things. Excuse me, brief comment first though. When we were soliciting the state for reimbursement, they gave us 3 extra points on reimbursement, which was a big deal, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars, because of how many green things we had in your high school. You know, like
That's
the
amazing.
solar over the room that they teach all that stuff in, the gray water usage up there, and several other things that we did. So
That's
we
amazing.
believe, seriously.
Thank you.
But the big question I have is, are students advised to educate their families on the Norwood recycling program? As to just what items can go in, you know, if you're not sure, throw it away, you know? Very important. I mean, you have a lot of young people up there, and if they could educate just their families, that's a big. We're only at 29% in the town of Norwood. We've been stuck at that since day one, since we started recycling, since we had buckets instead of the big bins.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I think the more we can all activate at multi-levels, townwide, high school, elementary, middle school, the more we get the youth involved, they
Big
bring it
time.
back to their families and it kind of permeates outward.
Exactly. I mean that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I can't remember the number, so I want to ask you, how many bags of trash did you folks get last year?
Last
Over
year,
It was a
200.
big number. I know.
I want
it
to
was.
say
Over 200?
276.
Yeah, it was hundreds. I know
Yeah.
it was hundreds. And,
Close to
and
300.
when I was down there for a few minutes after it, I heard that and I couldn't believe, you know, how
Yeah.
many bags.
It's more bags than
trash.
people. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah. I mean that was incredible. It was very well done, and that was the first time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very well done. Very well done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You can continue.
And so we also have a library display at the library. A lot of my fellow students worked really hard on developing different statistics and different methods of sustainability and how to kind of project what the club is about, what we're trying to do, and again, trying to connect it back to the town. And saying that, our Earth Week plan, which is again the 22nd to the 26th, on that Monday, where it's basically Earth Day, like the official Earth Day. So we're trying to get basically everyone in the school to wear green. Tuesday is a Zero Waste Day and trying to promote sustainability. Wednesday would be Water Day, and we would encourage students to wear blue. Thursday would be Environmental Impact Day, and there would be donations and sign-ups for the WWF. And then Friday would be a pajama day for the winning grade that would get.
World Wildlife.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
not World Wrestling anymore. They
Oh,
changed it.
I should have clarified, sorry.
They just changed it a couple years ago.
Not the wrestling people.
No wrestling this year.
We knew that.
And then Friday would be a pajama day for the winning grade that could get either the most amount of donations or pledges for that association. And then in addition to the already implemented days, we also have challenges and contests between classes. EYCs plan to be on the morning NHS update every morning, and basically talking about different competitions, different things that you can do within your community, because small things really do make a big difference. There's grade level competitions, which will basically end with the pajama day on Friday for the winning grade. And there's a town-wide social media challenge with the EYC hashtag, in addition to the town hashtags, and basically just promoting more facts and educational information that will result in many prizes and etc.
So in terms of townwide things that we're doing, we have events Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday that week of Earth Day. Thursday, the rec department is doing an Earth Day celebration at the Council on Aging. It's a collaboration between those two departments, 11:30 to 12:15, and you can register at the rec department. And then that evening, Together Yes is doing an event with the library where they're going to watch the first version of the Lorax and then do a seed planting. And that you can pre-register for that at the library. On Saturday, we're doing 2 different events. The first one is an Arbor Day tree planting, which John might want to talk about briefly.
Yeah, sure. We're working with Mark Bryan at the DPW to plant some trees. He wants to plant some near either the Haas pool or the Father Max pool to provide shade, in future years once they grow, for the onlooking parents and observers of the pool. Right now, there's not a lot of shade. So on the hot days, it would be nice for some larger trees to provide that shade for the parents.
Especially Father Bacalez.
Yeah.
And these were trees that John was able to secure as a donation through his company, which is a great way to save the town some money too.
Yeah, so once we have all the information squared away, we'll be advertising more about that. It'll be in the morning, before the duck race.
Not too early.
It is the morning after another event.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, we're also trying to collaborate currently with the Conservation Commission, the Neponset River Watershed Association, to do a cleanup of Haas Brook. We are going to meet with them next week.
17th.
To finalize the plans for that. And then Sunday is the big day. We have a few different events lined up. We have free yoga on the Common from 8 to 8:45 with a woman who's in Progress Norwood that's a certified yoga instructor. That's just a nice way to get ready for the day. And then 9:30 to 11, we're going to have the Earth Day cleanup at a number of different sites across town. We have 2 new sites this year. And then the same time, there's going to be plogging with Charles River Running. I think many of you were here last year. You would remember that plogging is actually when you jog and pick up trash while you're jogging. So Charles River Running did that last year, and they had as much trash as any of our sites had picked up.
It was a big success.
Yeah, it was. And then following the cleanups, I'll mention quickly that everybody who signs up to do participate in the cleanup will get a ticket for a free sliced pizza. Victoria's has donated free pizza for everybody who participates in the cleanup. So you're encouraged to pick up your piece of pizza, bring it down to Town Common for a townwide picnic and fair. And so the fair will be at Town Common from 11:30 to 1:30.
Yeah, and at that fair there'll be music, kids' activities, crafts. Next slide.
That'll be what date again?
It's Sunday, April 28th.
Yeah. So we have the Unlikely Strummers are coming down along with somebody from the Band Gig School of Music.
Yeah.
So it should be a good time.
And so as far as the site cleanups, we're going to be cleaning up all of the schools in town, plus a lot of the playgrounds. New for this year is the Wilson Playground and the Murphy Playground. In addition to that, the Norwood Advisory Trails Committee is going to be cleaning up the Indene property and also the Hennessy Trails.
Very good.
If you want to sign up for to help clean up the trails, if you go to progressnorwood.org, you can learn more about the event in total, and also sign up to participate in the cleanup. Gloves and trash bags will be provided.
And then all month long, we have piggybacked on an initiative started by our town manager. We are promoting Norwood is Going Green. So we are asking people to take pictures of something they do every day in their life to be more sustainable or more eco-friendly, and then post it on social media with the hashtag 30 days, 30 ways, and hashtag sustainable Norwood, and we're hoping to inspire and share ideas with others. So here's a couple of examples. You probably can't see them too well from where you are, but maybe the people at home can. We have a lot of different departments pitching in and taking part. We've got the police department, the senior center is now composting their coffee grounds. There's a couple of posts from various people, myself, John, Mr. Mizuko, and if you go on to Facebook or Instagram and search up that hashtag, the 30 days, 30 ways, you can see all the different ideas of ways to be sustainable in your everyday life. And the purpose of doing that isn't to be perfect. No one's going to be perfect and do everything the right way, but if you can change one thing just a little bit each day, it'll make a big difference and save our town a lot of trash and save the town a lot of money. So that's it. If you want to register for the cleanup, like John said, you can go to www.progressnorwood.org, and we have a number of spots open at all of the sites still that we'd love to see you guys participate.
We need more people than we had last year because we have additional sites.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't sign me up for the run.
What about yoga?
Sign me up for the slice of pizza.
Alan, what do you think? Yoga?
Yeah.
I've done yoga, it's too hard for me, seriously.
You can come for the pizza and the
I tried
music.
it, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, the Unlikely Strummers and Joe Hart should be a nice time. Hopefully we have as good weather as we did last year. We had some great weather last year.
You know, there's so
And
many.
if there is one
go
quick
ahead.
thing. If it rains, we'd still be doing the cleanup, but the fair afterwards is actually going to be moved to the high school, to the gymnasium. So we'll still have the whole fair, but it will be inside of the gymnasium at the high school.
You know, I have a couple of pet peeves that are so very easy to simplify and correct. Straws, plastic straws. Can't stand them. I don't know how many billions of plastic straws are floating out in the ocean. People can just go without straws. I think you had a sustainable post about going without straw.
I agree. I'm not in most cases for me, I could do without straws. I don't particularly care for them.
And the second thing was when you go to this, go ahead.
I
I'm sorry.
actually took my mother-in-law out to a local restaurant, named them, since we're giving a good plug to Chateau. They are now using paper straws, and they're really, actually, much more perfect with it.
We're going back to paper straws, hopefully.
Yep.
Another thing would be to, when you go to a grocery store, and I won't mention any names, but I will get, if I forget to bring in reusable bags, they will give you one item, 2 items in a bag, then they'll give you another plastic bag. I'll have 15 plastic bags by the time I get home. That's an awful waste right there. So it's important that people can just buy themselves a reusable bag, or a couple, depending on how much shopping you do, and govern yourself accordingly and do it right. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Maloney.
Well, I think it's very impressive, and I know it's going to be a great success because it was last year. So it's only going to get bigger and better as years go by. And good luck with that plugging. That'll be very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, sir. Mr.
I want to echo it's a tremendous job that you folks do. I'm really glad that you have, the high school is really, really involved. The success that you had last year, I think, is going to encourage more to get involved this year. So I wish you all luck, and you have not just our support, you're doing it all yourself, so that's great, good for you.
Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And good luck going forward.
Good luck, Irene. Thank you.
Okay, under new business, article number 1 is the annual town meeting warrant for signature of the board. Any comments on the, okay, any comments on Mr. Slater's proposal here? It says see agenda, item 14.
Oh, I will,
What's
Mr.
that?
Chairman. Oh, right.
Mr. Slater is submitting a request to the board to add a warrant article for the May 13th, 2019 annual town meeting to establish a new stabilization fund for the purpose of purchasing larger than normal capital equipment, which would be like a fire truck or something to that effect.
Mr. Chair,
Comment, go ahead.
totally opposed, totally opposed. That I just see this is another way to reduce the amount of free cash that we have, which nowadays is next to nothing anyways, the way people are rating it. But totally against another stabilization account for equipment.
Mr. Maloney, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm opposed to the idea and concept as well. I'd be happy to support putting it on a warrant in the future and let town meeting have a conversation about it, and I'll live with whatever the result is. But I think at the upcoming annual, I think anyway, we're trying to keep it as uncluttered as possible so that we could, the idea of separating the special or pushing the special back into April to precede the annual by a couple of weeks was to get through the annual as quickly as possible so we could get on to the business of June 3rd. So I'm opposed to putting it on the warrant at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Hajar?
This came up by the FinCom probably about a month ago. They have been talking about it for quite some time. And while there are no plans to put any money in it in the near future, because there is no, as Alan said, there is no free cash available. But they wanted to set the table for if something did come up and they could put a small chunk of change in. I support at least going on the warrant. I mean, last week when I brought it up, you didn't want it on the special town meeting warrant. You said bring it up next week to put it on the annual. Now that we're discussing the annual, no one wants to put it on the annual. I still think that you should allow town meeting members to decide, and I can understand individuals saying they don't support it. But the FinCom is asking that it go on the warrant, and they're not supporting any dollars to go into it at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hajar. Mr. Plasko?
Yeah, I personally don't agree with the concept either, but as far as putting it on this warrant, the warrant's here, prepared for signature already tonight. The idea that we set up, even if my personal opinion is in the minority, as you say, with town meeting side, all we would be doing is setting up the stabilization fund. There's no money to put into it, and with some reference to when they have money. But when they have money has to be when there's a town meeting, because to put money into a stabilization fund requires a two-thirds vote of town meeting. So the vote to establish can be at the time, let's say, for conversation of fall town meeting, when we in fact have identified maybe some free cash has become available, some other proper source of money has become available. We set up the account at the same time. We have the money to put into it. I don't see anything gained by rushing this onto an agenda that's ready to go. We won't be holding anything up, I guess the point I'm trying to make, because it won't be able to be effective till we're putting money into it, and that's not gonna be apparently till the fall sometime anyhow. I don't see any need for the rush into the annual this evening.
Thank you, sir. I basically feel the way as Mr. Plasko. Last week I supported this. I thought it was a good idea, but I don't think the timing is correct right now. Here we are within minutes of signing off on the town meeting warrant, and we're going to slip something in. It's going to be a stabilization account with nothing in it. So I think for all the appropriate reasons, we could possibly wait until the fall meeting, because I don't think anything will be appropriated between now and then. And Mr. Hajar, I know that's repetitive. We've done it before, but I would be in favor of putting it on the fall town meeting, and I'll go on record as that right now. So do I have a motion?
I think you do have a motion to approve the warrant has been submitted to us.
I was questioning the,
Oh, you want a separate motion on that?
yeah, separate motion on the.
Motion to table for consideration of future town meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye, post.
The vote is 4-1, one in opposition. And I'll entertain a motion to make a motion to sign the annual town meeting.
We have that. We already have.
And we need a second. Do we have a second also?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous? So we will sign that annual town meeting warrant this evening. Number 2, under new business, Mary Lou Follen, Town Clerk, submitting the following list of appointments for approval of the board. These are prior appointments that are up for renewal. Mark P. Ryan, Graves Custodian. Matthew Walsh, Sealer of Weights and Measures. Edmund W. Mulvihill Jr., Soldiers Relief Agent. Henry Segura, Animal Control Officer. And I'll take that group first. Go ahead.
Motion to appoint?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. The following individuals have also expressed an interest in being reappointed. Thomas Brady, Board of Appeals, Zoning. Mary C. Anderson, Associate Member of Board of Appeal. Edmund W. Mulvihill Jr., Fence Viewer. Kevin Shaughnessy, Airport Commission. Martin Ostrachel, Airport Commission. Thomas F. O'Toole, Constable. James E. Pepin, Constable. And Juliette Bugeaud, Board of Registrars. Comments from the board? Mr.
Yes,
Hajar.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for a delay so that I'd like to have the opportunity to speak to each of these individuals. I think there's a difference between, and maybe it's just semantics with the wording, but the first group was for approval. This is one. The second group is sort of a group that has shown interest in being reappointed. I'd like the opportunity to, I've spoken to a couple of them already, but we just got this list, or at least I did, this list Friday afternoon, and just have not had a chance to speak to all of them. And it's not a question of a yes or no. I'm just asking that we delay it for a week to allow your newest member to get acquainted with each one of these individuals and just have a discussion so I can understand what their understanding of the position is as well, and to get their feedback on what they feel is going on at each of the boards or committees or whatever there is that they're going on and what they're doing. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Any comments?
Just a question, is
Sure.
next week's meeting canceled?
Yes.
Is the what?
Next week's meeting is canceled?
Yes, but I wasn't going to
So
get that
that-
till later on.
So this will be a 2-week delay?
Yes,
for
2 weeks
the
delayed. It brings us almost right down to the deadline. These appointments were effective May 1. I personally don't see any reason to belay them. I have been in contact with most of these individuals with the exception of one, and everybody seems to want to continue on. They've been here doing the job for several years, if not many in some cases. In the case of Kevin Shaughnessy and Martin Ostrachel, there is a litigation going on with the Norwood Airport, and I think they would be right to stay on until such conclusion of litigation, if for no other reason, to indemnify their position and how they stand on the litigation. So I personally would not be in favor of the continuance. Sir?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a fair request from Mr. Hajar as the newest member. I do agree that there are a couple of exigent factors here that do make time of the essence. In the case of the Airport Commission and possibly the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. The others, Constable, Board of Registrars, Fence Viewer, I don't mind delaying. But I do think, at least, I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say, but I do agree with you on the Airport Commission thing. I think under the circumstances, it's important to maintain the continuity, given the situation we're in legally there. And I would nominate Mr. Shaughnessy and Mr. Ostrachel for reappointment.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we delay for a 2-week period with the exception of the 2 members of the Airport Commission that Tom Maloney has offered.
Just for clarification, are you saying including those 2 members?
No, excluding those 2
Excluding
members.
those 2 members.
So should I make a motion to renominate those 2? Is it?
Well, we know, as soon as we get
I'm
the
sorry,
others
I
done, we'll go
didn't-
to that.
I didn't hear the motion, I'm sorry.
The motion is to delay until the next meeting the approval of those members except for the 2 Airport Commission
So
nominees.
should I make a motion to reappoint those 2
After.
Afterwards.
afterwards?
We're working on the delay now of 2 weeks.
Oh, all right, okay, I'm sorry. Just a question on zoning board of appeals. I know we have a little bit of we probably have a succession there. Do you want to address that
That's
now?
coming up. I'll address that at the end,
All right.
at the end of this group.
Is it,
Separately.
is it okay to delay on the Board of Appeals? That's part of the motion, right?
Right. It's the 23rd. It's before their term is up, so I think
Before the
we'll
term
all-
is up, but do we,
Well, that's fine, but I don't think what I'm going to talk about is going to affect it.
okay.
I'll explain that shortly. So the motion is to approve the ones that are already mentioned here, with the exception of the 2 airport commissioners.
I thought the motion
It's
was.
the
I'm sorry, I got it
opposite.
backwards.
Just the opposite.
Just the opposite. The 2 airport commissioners, you want to make a motion to approve those right now? Get that out of the way.
Sure.
I sort of did.
What's that?
Second.
I
In
did.
a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Now, the remaining members, the situation is to leave them for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Until you had an opportunity to
Our
speak
next
to them.
meeting.
That's the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
That's what we just voted on. isn't it?
No,
No.
What did we just vote on?
the 2 members on the.
Just the 2
Took
airport
them out of
commissioners.
order.
Airport.
Took them out of order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second to have a 2-week postponement on the remaining members.
And that, just to clarify, that's Brady, Anderson, Mulvihill, O'Toole, Pep, and Peugeot.
Correct.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
If we're tabling these, I was going to be making a recommendation or a motion to add, well, when we talk about the vacancy on the zoning board, promoting Mr. Murphy to that position from the position of associate member. And we have a gentleman who's offered his services to the town for a couple of years. We've kind of misplaced his application, I guess, in our talent bank. He's also interested in the zoning bank, Mr. Brian Gorman. And I was going to recommend that we put him on as an associate member, get him some exposure and time serving. If anyone thinks we should do anything different, like have him in, interview him, or interview him in the meantime, maybe we can do that now instead of in 2 weeks having to delay it again.
Well,
Mr. Shaw?
if we can deal with the motion for these, and then we can talk to what Bill's point. I personally would
That's
like
why I
to
was
see the
going to wait till the end to
individual.
do this.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
So we have a motion excluding the Board of Appeals
No,
but
April Commission.
for a 2-week continuance
No,
And
the
I have-
appointment commissions, the
in the airport commissioners. And I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
No, it's still mistaken. It's just the airport commissioners that are being excluded from the motion. They've
Yeah.
already been.
They've already been appointed.
Yeah, we're
So
all
we're
set.
Talking
set
about
with
the
them.
remaining.
It's all these others
the remaining
excluding
six.
the airport commissioners.
Okay, yep.
So I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now, getting back
Thank you,
to
Mr.
the
Chairman.
zoning board of appeals. We have a young lady, Barbara Kenter, who is not going to be reappointed for several reasons. None of her own choosing. She does not want to choose to be reappointed. And did you want to speak about the two that were coming in?
Well, I
Okay.
was aware of that vacancy and that we're only looking at one incumbent to reappoint. So my thought was, obviously we're tabling it for tonight, possibly promoting Mr. Murphy, and if that happens, we'd have an opening as for an associate member. And Mr. Gorman's had an application in our talent bank for a couple of years, and I was thinking we'd either appoint him, or if people want to ask for more information on him, or actually talk to him, or if they actually want to have people on the board, that we, now that I bring this up, we decide how to handle it so that we don't delay another week or two.
Mr. Jarrett, any comment on that?
Well, I think if we could put Scott in the grouping for 2 weeks from now along with Mr. Brady, that's fine. And if we could bring, I thought the board, like 3 years ago, had agreed, I even think it was either out of Alan's or Bill's suggestion to bring people in that want to be on these boards. I'd suggest that we follow that and bring them in for just a small
That's fine.
Q&A, that's all.
So the only point I was trying to get is Barbara Kenter will not be reappointed by her own choosing. So that's why we have these two new people coming on. One to replace her and one to become the associate. And we can do that in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we'll have that gentleman in.
Well, I
Right,
think
Gorman.
Mr. Zhao
Yes.
wants to. You want to have them in?
Yes, Mr. Gorman, right?
Just those two?
Well, has Scott already been serving?
Scott's been serving as.
Scott's been an associate
several
member.
years, so we know
So you've
Scott.
already talked to him, so, and I don't think you need to re-interview him. I'd just say bring his name up with the others in 2 weeks.
So in
Only
2
one
weeks
I'm
from
saying-
now,
the only one I'm saying bring in
Like
is
Mr.
Ryan
Gorman
Gorman.
in for an appointment.
That's all.
2 weeks from now, we'll interview Mr. Gorman.
Right.
And at that time, if everything falls into place, we'll move on with the rest of this list.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
Actually, that probably works well, because in the event that Mr. Gorman is unavailable, we can have him, so it's an associate position we're probably going to offer him, so we can move forward with Mr. Murphy at that time if we're comfortable, and then fill the associate position later. So one other thing too, I actually have talked to Mr. Gorman when he sent in his application to the talent bank a year or two ago. And so I think it's worthwhile talking to him. I agree with Mr. Plasko, Mr. Hajar.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get all this cleared up 2 weeks from tonight, if we're lucky.
Regarding
You will.
Mrs. Kinter,
Mrs. Kenter, her last meeting with the zoning board of appeals will be a week from tonight, I believe, the
should we do
16th.
something to recognize her many years of service on the board?
I've asked the clerk on
Wonderful,
the
thank you.
board to put something together for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 3, Norwood Council on Aging for reappointment for 2-year term Thomas F. Tobin, Francis M. Kenny, Edmund W. Mulvihill Jr.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Number 4, Economic Development Committee for the reappointment of William J. Plasko for a 3-year term to expire April 30th, 2022.
No
So
way.
moved.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
I think we should bring him in for an interview.
3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Number 5, car wash. Norwood High School girls hockey would like a car wash from, on July 27th, which is a Saturday, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I assume that's across the street from the Civic.
Yes.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, all opposed, unanimous. Number 6, Robert F. Sullivan, Senior, Manager for Xfinity, submitting a notice regarding price changes. There's something new. Price changes to Xfinity TV services. Acorn TV will change from $4.99 to $5.99 per month as of May 2nd, 2019. This is due to an increase in programming costs from Acorn. All current subscribing customers will be notified through their billing messages.
Information to file.
Information to file, and I have a second. All in favor, all opposed, unanimous. Number 7, Daryl Hanson, Broadband Division Manager for Norwood Cable, submitting a copy of the 2018 annual state license fee in the amount of $2,923.20 paid to and filed with the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications and Cable in accordance with the Massachusetts Cable Regulations, General Law, Chapter 166A, Section 9.
Information to file.
Second.
All in favor, all opposed, unanimous. Number 8, Paul Ronco, President of the Firefighters Local 1631 here in Norwood, submitting a request to hold its annual Firefighters 5K for MDA, that's muscular dystrophy, road race. The start and finish line will be at St. Timothy's Church, starting at 10 a.m., and he's coordinating this event with Norwood Police Department Safety Officer.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do I see a date on here at all?
Yeah.
Oh,
Was on
June 8th,
June 8th.
June 8th, 2019.
Okay, that'll be on June 8th. Number 9, Attorney Jessica,
We didn't vote on that.
I'm sorry, we didn't vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous. Number 9, Attorney Jessica Durazian, Esquire of Connor and Hilliard PC, submitting application for a transfer of restaurant all alcohol beverage license from YKLU Food Inc. to EMC Restaurant Inc., DBA Same Old Place Bar and Grill, and submitting application for a common victuals license to operate Same Old Place Bar and Grill at 1210 Boston Providence Highway, Norwood. Public hearing is required.
Motion to
Set
set.
the hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Item number 10, Norwood Historical Commission, submitting the 2018 annual report of the Norwood Historical Commission. Information?
Information to file.
On the motion?
Sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that the Historical Commission is mentioning here the restoration of the St. Gabriel the Archangel Chapel, having been one of their top priority for this year. That project is very near completion as we sit here, and I'm pretty confident that the chapel will be open by Memorial Day.
I think we all look forward to that also. Thank you, sir, for your information.
Thank you, sir.
Additional new business, number 11, Chief William G. Brooks III, Norwood Police Department, submitting liquor incident report for Limey's Pub, Washington Street. Incident was investigated by Norwood Police, and there was no evidence of a violation. Information?
To file.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous. Number 11, David Dupree, Norwood Space Center, submitting application for one-day WMB, that's malt beverage
Wine and
and
malt
beer,
beverage.
license for Saturday, May 11th, 2019, from 5 till 10 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed, unanimous. Number 13, Pamela Carthy, APT Fighting Chance Foundation, submitting application for one-day wine and malt beverage license at Complete Indoor Sports located at 576 Pleasant Street for Saturday, April 13th, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. for a charity boxing event. Motion?
Is there information on the charity? I didn't see that.
To help people with cancer.
Thank you.
Just, Mr. Chair,
Sir?
just, whereas these people have been in for a one-day license previously, do they need to contact the safety officer or not?
They
I don't believe so. It's an inside event. They've done this before.
they have done
Oh,
this.
they have done this
Yeah,
before?
this is
Oh,
not
I
new.
stand corrected then. Okay, thank you. Motion approved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Number 14, Alan D. Slater, Chairman of the Finance Commission. This is on the new stabilization fund request to put on, we've spoken about that, so we're all set. Moving on. Article number 15, James Collins, Light Department Superintendent. A, submitting notice that in accordance with the cable television renewal license, they have made payment to Norwood Community Media for the 5% quarterly franchise fee in the amount of $46,560 to comply with Section 6.4 of the Cable Television Final License Agreement.
Information to file.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed, unanimous. And number B, letter B, submitting notice of a payment to Norwood, Town of Norwood in the amount of $1,788 for the administration fee, which was deposited in the general fund for PEG Access Group. PEG again stands for Public Education and Government Group, in accordance with Article 7.1 of the license.
Information to file.
Have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Unfinished business, ABCC, All Alcohol Beverage Commission, submitting final approval of transfer of all alcoholic beverage license from Elise, Inc., DBA Acapulco's Mexican Family Restaurant, to El Tomato, Inc., doing business as Acapulco Mexican Restaurant, 500 Providence Highway, Norwood, Mass. That's just informing us that the transaction has been concluded by the two entities.
Information to file.
Second?
I have
So just
information.
a question.
Yes, sir.
Procedurally, I mean, so they've already been here, they've
Yep.
presented to your satisfaction, all the information is required, voted, now you
This
just...
is, it was sent through the ABCC, now it's coming back to notify us.
Even though we take local action, it's all subject to ABCC and
Right.
final approval.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Additional unfinished business, submitting the following correspondence regarding an override from Mr. Robert M. Thornton, CPA. Comments on the letter itself?
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
Mr. Thornton actually sent two correspondences, one on Friday,
This
one
is-
on Monday.
Right.
But sort of thinking of it as one. The second is an addendum to the first. He has now communicated with us 3 times on the matter of the override, and I'll say this, not only because he's a friend of mine, but I mean it. Everything he submits is a pleasure to read and to contemplate. I just think the main point, I think, from Mr. Thornton's communications is that he believes that we would be justified in proposing a lower number for the levy limit increase in the June 3rd vote, and we probably still have time to do it. My own feeling is that I think it's a very well-reasoned argument, but I think at this point, with all the time and effort that's gone into it, with the Budget Balancing Committee, the FinCom, our own group, at this point, it's 5.95, up or down, no tiers. Let's vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sir?
Thank you. Likewise, I have a very friendly relationship with Mr. Thornton, have for many years. He's helped me a lot over the years, both on the Finance Commission and on his board. Saturday, when we had our meeting for about 4.5 hours with the Finance Commission, School Committee, Superintendent, and our town manager, things that were said at that meeting convinced me at that time to support the override. Having said that, then the concern with myself is that from phone calls I've got, quite a few I might add, from constituents in our town, there's a lot of people that are on the fence. That a lot of the people, of course, they want to support our schools, no question, and likewise town government. They want to support them. with the cost involved, they just want to be sure that it's not any more excessive than it truly needs to be. And I hear what my colleague said a moment ago about the different committees. And things have come back from the state recently. Even if there was a few $100,000 that we could reduce this, I think it would give much more confidence to the people out there that everybody has done their due diligence on this item. And if there is, in fact, as Mr. Thornton said, still time to, if we wanted to change the number, and I'm not saying we do, but if the people that work for us would check this on our behalf in the very near future, just to see if it needs to be tweaked any, to reduce it. That's all. And again, to garner support from a lot of people who I know are on the fence on this thing. And that's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Plasko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Town clerk and accountant was speaking with me the other day, and she was asking if this was final, the wording for the warrant for the special override election, because she wanted to get started getting the ballots prepared and so forth. I recommended to her that she hold off till after this week's meeting. I think legally we could go up to our 23rd or 5th, whatever that Tuesday is, that we have a posted meeting, and still make the minimum 35 days, but that's putting her up against the, her back up against the wall type of thing. On the comments, I likewise pay great homage to our friend Mr. Thornton. He's a good personal friend, share a lot of information over the years on many issues. We've had two very deeply documented letters previously that we've had to consider. The letters that came in April 5th and April 8th to consider. And it also has been carefully gone over by the Townwide Budget Committee. And I have to respectfully say that I'm particularly referring to the letter of April 8th from Mr. Thornton. He mentions several sources of income that maybe we should consider using to reduce the amount. As Mr. Howard saying, maybe we do something to reduce the amounts. He says here there appears to have been several revenue and budgetary events that have transpired since the vote for the 5.95 million, and that they have not fully utilized or reduced the 5.9 million amount as requested. Respectfully, that's incorrect. All those amounts have been used. This original review started at 8.7 million. We got it down to 7.2 million. And then when these very costs that are outlined in this letter came in, we used those to bring it down to the 5.9 and or save a couple of items in the budget this year from having to reduce services to maintaining those services. So those funds have all been carefully considered, reviewed, and already used. So I don't see that there's anything else to reduce. The school portion of the override is to restore the very serious cuts we've all read about, seeing that they need to make this year if they have to balance the budget without an override with their share of the budget, and that includes us using some of the free cash that's on hand, that we've had a discussion that's not a very good idea for us to be lowering the free cash over very much more. And we have $1.6 million starting out, but we're using a little bit in the upcoming special town meeting. We're using, in round number, 500,000 for the schools, so they could leave something in their budget they otherwise are going to have to cut, and roughly the 500,000 for some other items at the annual town meeting, capital items. So we're leaving ourselves with less than 400,000 or about 400,000 in round numbers, yet we have a policy that says we won't let our free cash go below 500,000. Auditor's letter, last time they evaluated our position, noted that we could suffer a reduction in our bond rating if we continue to experience further reductions in our cash flow and our free cash balance. And this year would be lower than last year, and now we would be ending the year with an amount lower than our policy. So I think we'd be putting ourselves into a very bad position. The only thing I could see us possibly reducing would be the stabilization fund we're recommending with $700,000. The problem, as I see it in doing that, is we're planning to make a pledge, the three boards, FinCom, Selectmen, School Committee, that if this override passes, we will maintain the budget without any cuts in services for a 5-year period and without asking for any additional funding. The stabilization count, if we're very lucky, we might not need. But if we want to ensure that we can keep that pledge, we need that as a safety valve. We need that to be there. If we don't have to use it, there's nothing wrong in having a savings account. And in fact, at the very beginning, later this year, we're going to be looking for $1.5 million to do a design study for the Coakley, and down the road up to towards $50 million in borrowing. And so it's be very important that we maintain a very stable and solid free cash and stabilization balance, so that when we're going through those reviews, we have the town in a good position. And therefore, I don't really see anything that's been discussed yet. And they're all good ideas, but unfortunately, we have used them all. So I don't see any leeway or room for reducing that number at this time.
Thank you, sir.
If
Mr.
there
Shah?
isn't an actual motion to, I'm sorry, but if there isn't an actual motion to reduce, I'd like to offer a motion that we authorize the clerk to proceed with preparation of the ballots as instructed previously.
I'll second that.
On the motion.
Okay, so the one thing I was going to add a little bit differently, I mean, you all have very eloquently stated the issues so far regarding the override number. You know, Bob has been pretty diligent in his letter writing, and he does bring up, like Bill says, several good points, but I don't think there were points that were ignored by the BBC. My biggest issue is you have a collaborative effort between school administration, school committee, town administration, board of selectmen, and the finance commission. And you ask them to work since right after town meeting last May, and they've been at it for 9 months. And Bill alluded to the different amounts that we started up over $11 million, and then we finally got the committee, I believe unanimously, to agree on the 5.95 number.
Correct.
I think it would be very difficult, and surely you wouldn't want to change this number on your own without going back to the two groups that you collaborated with to find what is the right number, if there was going to be a number, to move forward. For us to just take it now and say, okay, well, we're going to change the number in the next week. You got 2 weeks. One of them is a school vacation week, so a lot of people are not going to be here. So you really have 1 week to try to work with two very, diligent boards and trying to find out, should we change the number? I just think it's unfair and unwise. And I think as we charted through Saturday, it showed that people appreciate the fact that we all got together, we all agreed in a set of financial policies as we try to continue to move the town forward in a collaborative way, and this would be totally against that effort, and I think it would be a huge mistake. So I agree with everyone else that now's probably not the time. The voters will have their say. My big effort is in the near future, I'm going to talk about possible revenue enhancement, which would then not have to allow us to raise the tax levy. I mean, people have to understand, I know others have said it too, what the voters are approving on June 3rd is a tax levy. They're not approving a budget that says we need $5.95 million. That only town meeting can approve the actual dollar amount. The taxpayers approve the tax levy amount. So when you figure out how much tax levy you need, it's after you have all your other revenue on the table, and then you say, okay, we're short by this, and this is what the taxes have to make up. So if we can come up with additional revenue-generating ideas, you know, a lot of little Cheerios can add up to a big bowl. We can do it, and maybe the number actually does go down, but not through lowering the number, but through just lowering the tax levy requirement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Howard?
Thank you,
please?
Mr.
And
Chairman.
then Mr. Maloney.
I certainly appreciate my colleague, Mr. Plasko's comments. I put a lot of value in what he says. I would just ask one more question, if I could, of Mr.
Yes, sir.
Zuko. And that is, at this point, of what you know, Mr. Manager, do you see any rocks that we can turn over?
Not at this point, no. I mean, if you remember, the number that we came up with was designed, we first talked about what we wanted to achieve. What are we trying to solve here? And then we found out what the numbers are to achieve that. So I had said this to budget balancing earlier. If we want to reduce a number, we've got to decide what do we want to not do. If we just wanted to shave a number down a little bit, you can always shave a number down a little bit. But from the outset, folks wanted to look at a 5-year plan. We wanted to make sure we're trying to solve this problem for the next 5 years, as opposed to just cut it down a little bit and then what happens if we're in the same boat in a couple of years. I don't want to go to the taxpayers for any more money than we need, but I don't want to go to them in 4 years and say, oopsie, we thought we were good for 5, but it was actually just 4. I think that's just as disingenuous. Unless you, as Mr. Plasko said, unless you wanted to not go with the override stabilization account and not levy that amount, that might smooth the impact over, but the budget balancing committee over the last year has sort of figured out this is what we want to achieve and this is what we want to do, and then this is the cost associated with it.
Thank you. I appreciate the board's courtesy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Maloney?
Yeah, just a couple of points from Mr. Hajar. Mr. Hajar said, it's true that what we're looking at here in the override is an increase to the levy limit. Only town meeting can appropriate the money, and it's town meeting's job in conjunction with the Finance Commission primarily to scrutinize budget requests and decide if they are legitimate in toto or if they should be reduced or amended in any way. The second thing too is on the we have the I saw you were looking at the proposed memorandum of understanding, Mr. Chairman. Number 8 on that says specifically that we will exhaust all other sources of revenue before going to the tax levy. That's, I think, an interesting change in the way we've been doing business for the last at least 10 years that I've been involved, because since I've been on the Finance Commission, it was always, here's your levy limit from last year, add 2.5% plus new growth, bang, what else have you got? So now we're going to start to do it the other way, which kind of puts a little bit, I think, some pressure on the work we do in other areas to generate revenue prior to increasing the tax levy. So I thought those were 2 good points. And I know you're going to talk about that document at some point, Mr. Chairman, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. Just repeat a little bit on the stabilization fund. We could cut that because it's not needed immediately. We even hope to add money into it in the next couple of years. But then the third, or hopefully not even until the 4th or 5th, we'll need to draw down on that to be able to keep that 5-year commitment to the public, unless some clearly large and unforeseen funds come in. And then at that time, if any such miracle should happen, that money is still there in a savings account. It could be reappropriated for another purpose. It could be put towards that school building program or whatever else might come up, say 3 or 4 years down the line when we actually identify that it is used for the purpose intended. However, if it's not in there, then I don't think I can sign the memorandum of understanding, because I don't think we have the backup we need to keep that commitment. And on the schools, I mentioned that they needed the money to balance this year's budget. There is a little extra in there. I think it's approximately $1.5 million that they're asking for things that are not in their budget, that they either really believe they need for a strong educational system or, in fact, are mandated by the state and are not meeting those mandates at this time.
Unfunded mandates.
Unfunded mandates. And they had an opportunity to perhaps have the question worded differently, perhaps have that handled differently. They think, and this is in my words, but I think it represents their position, that school committees for years have been asking for more, pointing out they need more, and doing without, and that it's just not responsible to go further. They can't go further within our budget limits because we don't have the money, so they're asking the voters to decide if they'll support it or not. So the whole thing is just going to the voters anyhow, who will ultimately say they agree with this or they don't.
Thank you. Mr. Mizuko.
Just two comments to the board's edification. I might have mentioned this Saturday on overrides around the state. Melrose, just about 24,000 people in the town of Melrose, they just passed a $5.1 million override. They took a different approach than we did. They didn't do any 5-year projections. They didn't try to solve any problems over a 5-year period. They just said, this is how much we think we're short and this is what we want to add. I think they added 28 positions in their override. That passed, but no pledge or MOU and no 5-year projections. Arlington, as everyone knows, we often look at them as a model. They passed an override projecting it to last 3 years. It lasted between 7 and 8, mainly because of health insurance changes. They joined the GIC right after the override, after their override, which saved them millions of dollars. The town of Norwood did that about 7 years ago in the GIC, so we saved that amount of money, which is likely why we are now as opposed to where Arlington was. They've done out their financial projections, and in 3 years they're looking at a $16 million override. So they're actually proposing a $6 million override this coming year to smooth that out going forward. So even the sort of model of the best fiscal management that's out there, wealthier communities than us, larger communities than us, are still seeing this recurring challenge. So everyone takes a slightly different approach to an override. There's not one path that everyone takes.
Arlington's also a good example on my stabilization account again. They originally started off with a 3-year plan. They're now going to the 9th year, and they're able to get to the 9th year because they didn't have to use that stabilization until last year and this year. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, on the motion, I'd like to make a couple of comments myself in 2 areas. Number one, I spoke about this on Saturday. Every town, 2/3 of the town at least, across the Commonwealth are in an override situation. I have been in an override situation. It's very obvious to me that maybe Proposition 2.5 is not working the way it should work. With that said, I think this becomes a legislative problem at some time. Cities and towns cannot be left to handle their own situation here. Somebody's got to step in at a legislative level, and there's got to be some change to 2.5, or there's got to be some more money coming into cities and towns. I don't know what the answer is. I don't pretend to know what the answer is, but I think we're not going to solve the problem, nor is Arlington or any other Commonwealth city or town. Somebody's got to step up from the state level and look at this thing and see how they can better serve cities and towns so we don't get into this position. And lastly, Mr. Thornton's letter, as far as that is concerned, I agree with all the arguments here this evening. I don't disagree with them. But I think my job as a selectman, not necessarily as a chairman, but as a selectman, is to put as much information out there in the public for the upcoming June 3rd election as possible, whether it be one side or the other. I think it's important that all citizens have all the information. And what I would like to do is make this letter available through the Selectman's office. If somebody wants to get a copy of it, they can stop by here if the board is in agreement with that and does not have a problem. Just make it.
It's a public record.
Yeah, I know that, but for some reason, maybe somebody doesn't want to do that. It is a public record, and if you would like to get a copy, perhaps you could notify the Selectman's office here or come down and drop in, and we can give you a copy, because I think it's important that everybody knows all the issues and every piece of paperwork that's out there, so that come June 3rd, you can go and make an informed decision one way or the other. So that's my comment. Mr.
Jim,
Hajar.
just you made a good point about what can the state do. A big chunk of what they can do is stop putting unfunded mandates
Exactly.
To the cities and towns. I think it's great that they can sit up there and sort of put on paper and send it out saying, oh, you need to do this, it's good for the kids, it's good for general government to do this. It's all at a price tag that they're not willing to fund, but they want us to fund. They wonder why MMA is constantly pushing back that we need this, and so that's one.
We can't carry the burden ourselves.
No, I don't mean to belabor it, but I agree with that point entirely. I'm actually a big fan of Prop 2.5. I think it's worked brilliantly. I remember what the state was like before there was Prop 2.5. We were Illinois, only without the character. So I think I think Prop 2.5 is what it means is that when government wants more money than it's allowed to tax, it has to go to the people and request it. That's all we're doing here. We're going to the people and asking if they'd like to be taxed more. Do they want to buy more government? We'll do it. If that's what they want, they'll get it. If they don't, they won't.
Thank you, sir. Any
So
other
we have a
comments?
motion?
Would you like to repeat your motion?
Yeah, the motion was to authorize and direct the clerk to proceed with the preparing of the override ballot as previously directed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All opposed? Unanimous. I think we have one last item here on the
Chief Brooks, yeah.
Chief Brooks. Recently, Ernie Bach Jr. of Norwood donated money to the Norwood Police and Fire Department to upgrade and refurbish their gym in the public safety building. And Article number 1 here under memoranda, Chief William G. Brooks, submitting a copy of a letter sent to Ernie Bach Jr. regarding generous donation to refurbish the gym in the public safety building, that being used by both police and fire. So we thank you very much for that donation.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
I understand that this was the actual work, right? He sent his workmen in to do the work?
Yes.
Correct, in the equipment.
Motion,
not-
motion to accept the donation under 4453 and a half.
Do you know what that value
Second.
was?
Yeah,
Do you know
well,
what the value
it would
was
be
for
nice
the
to have a value, but whatever it was, we've got it now.
I don't want to quote the value, but it's either in the area of, or to exceed $30,000, somewhere in that area. And don't quote me on the exact number, but that's the general area. So we have a motion, do we have a second? on
Second.
that? Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the donation
And to send a letter of thanks.
and to send a letter of thanks to Mr. Ernie Bach Jr. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous? That concludes most of our business this evening, and let's jump to the manager's update first.
2 quick items, Mr. Chairman. 1, tomorrow morning, I hope to see you all bright and early here for Student Government Day, one of the best days of the year we have here in Town Hall, so we'll be having a couple dozen students from the high school join us here. They'll be spending time with different boards and committees and department heads, and then we'll go to the police community room. We'll do the great budget debate, just like we did last year, where we've raised a small amount of money, and we'll let students debate on how to go ahead and spend that money. Firefighter Joe Mon returns to service tomorrow. There will be a small ceremony at the fire station. I believe Chairman Bishop is going to attend on behalf of the town. And last but not least, this coming Monday is our Bring Home the Bacon for Civics event, so I'm sure I'll see all the board members there. We're raising money for various civics activities at Norwood High School, which incidentally, this is unique to Norwood. Have not seen another community doing it, so kudos to Norwood for stepping up.
And the price of the tickets would be?
$25. They're available either online or at the general manager's office. All of the food is being donated by the Paul Angelo of the Old Colonial Cafe, and all the flyers and the printed tickets and everything are being donated as well. So again, you can get the tickets online, you can get them in the office. You can also make a donation if you're not able to attend.
I like the personal touch, so I will bring in a check for $50 on Friday to the manager directly. I like that one-on-one contact. So
We appreciate it.
thank you. Any other comments from the board on that? You're speechless, right?
Just emphasize, everyone's supposed to gather at Memorial Hall for Student Government Day.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll get back as quickly as I can. It's an 8 o'clock session down there, and it's an 8 o'clock up here, 8:30 down there, so I'll get up here as quickly as I can.
We would appreciate it.
Next.
And that is all, Mr. Chairman.
That is all. Selectmen's agenda. Mr. Hajar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 things. One is, in the Beacon that we get, they had a very extensive article about Chapter 90 funding, and I know part of our override is to increase the amount of money that we want to put towards local roads, which is badly needed around town. I think we've had a lot of people share their frustrations to each of us at some point about certain streets. But what was interesting about the article, and I'm just bringing it to the public's attention because there is an effort by the MMA to try to get the annual funding increased from $200 million across the state to a multi-year $300 million per year effort. And they came close last year. It was agreed to by the Baker administration as well as the Senate, but it didn't survive Senate conference with the House, and so they went back to the $200 million. I spoke to John Rogers earlier to try to get his feel about where the House was this year. He doesn't feel great that the House side is going to go above $200 million, but he is going to work with Senator Rush to try to get it in the conference, and maybe they can push them, if not, $300 million, even a higher number than 200, and get it multi-year funding so that we would know specifically what we could plan on getting year after year instead of waiting until March of every year to say, okay, yeah, this year it's 90,000 or whatever. My point number 2 is the CPA match for fiscal 2020 went down. For those that keep track, there was, again, we've gone from what it used to be, 100% at one point, and they're down to 11.5% this year, another decrease. So Me, I'm just glad we can do what we can do. We certainly generate some good income from that, which I think is appreciated, and I know the CPC committee is working hard to propose projects and plans to get what we can done for the money that we do collect, but as more and more communities
Correct.
sign up, that there's only so far that the pot can be split, and this is what's happening. My third point is, I just want to give an applause that I'll probably do many, many times, is Impact Norwood, which is working with the youth and the adults of this town to deal with drugs. Specifically marijuana. Vaping is becoming a big issue. We're going to hear about, they did a survey of the students from the middle school on up to find their, what they have been experimenting with or using. And it was for, when they took the survey, it's in the last 30 days, what have you done? The number for the middle school was like 13, 14%. The number for the high school was above 30. Really unacceptable. And so there's going to be a strong push, I know, by Impact Norwood. People can volunteer and be a part of their organization. We meet once a month on Thursdays. It's the second Thursday of the month, so it's meeting this Thursday. It's at the high school in their library around 3 o'clock. So I encourage people to join. And they had a dodgeball fundraising tournament at the Civic Center. I think we heard about this from Travis Farley. It was great, and there was a lot of information shared. I know they do things at Norwood Day as well, but this has really caught the attention of the state. Again, a big article in the Beacon about this and what cities and towns can do, and I think we can do more. I did have a very long conversation with Segal about is there anything we can do as a board, and I think we're working on that. We can come back, possibly establishing a task force that can look at some of the issues regarding flavored tobacco, which is against the rules in Norwood, but some licensed folks still do it. And if we can restrict it to adult-type stores, of which there is one right now, but as soon as we say that, there's going to be a couple that are going to want to do it, so we need to limit that. So I think there's a whole program of issues that we could work with the Board of Health, or especially Segal as the director on, and I'd like to bring those forward in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bosco.
Thank you, sir. I noticed you had a copy of the MOU. Were you planning on discussing that this evening?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And I have nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Howard, please.
We accepted the retirement, actually, of Mr. Tony Mastandrea from his position representing our town with the MBTA, I believe it was. I think a letter of commendation would be proper for us
Did
to,
we send them one last year?
I don't know, did we?
They served up to last year, and we changed it to...
Was it last year?
Yeah, and then we changed it to Mr. Halkiotis last year.
Oh,
If we could check that, and if we didn't, then I go along with Mr. Howard's motion, because that would be an oversight. We certainly should have, but I'm assuming we did.
oh, okay, because the way it was written up this year, I thought he
That was
he
a
had stepped
misprint.
back this
That
year.
was a misprint
Oh,
on the
okay.
yellow sheet. On our updated, it was correct.
Yeah, thank you, thank
If I
you.
can interject, I took Mr. and Mrs. Mastandrea to lunch at that time last year and presented that plaque to him at that
So
time.
we're all set.
Oh, did you? Cool, thank you very much.
You're
Then
welcome.
I stand corrected, but that was a good thing anyways. My second item is a sad item, that I kind of put this in the category of people that you don't see regularly doesn't mean you're not thinking about those people. And what I'm talking about is the passing of a fellow who had been a dear friend of mine in the youth hockey as a coach, and that's Fred Millen. This gentleman was, so to speak, a quiet person, if you will, to be a hockey coach, which is amazing. But in simple terms, a good guy. just a good guy, and he passed away relatively young a few days ago, and I just want to give my condolences to his family and close friends. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Hajar was talking about the Mass Municipal Association's push to increase funding for road work in the state. They issued a report not too long ago estimating that in year one, if we were to do everything we need to do in the state, we would have to spend a total, an aggregate of $685 million in year one. So even the $300 million that they're pushing for doesn't even come to half of what's actually needed, just to show you the urgency of the problem that Mr. Hajar mentioned. Couple of things. First of all, I do want to thank the Norwood Police Department for their work in my own neighborhood this past week. You might have heard on the news, marijuana products, fireworks, and guns and ammunition were found in a certain home over on my side of town. The Norwood Police Department had done the background work, the investigative work. They got the warrant, they went in, and they found a lot more probably than they had expected to do, but their work was done with dispatch and efficiency, and the perpetrator, alleged perpetrator, was arrested, and the process will follow the usual course. But I want to thank them for their work on that case. Let's see, and finally, we're looking forward to Student Government Day tomorrow, and we're looking forward in this chamber of visiting with Jaden and Casey and Justin and Eric and Denesi. We'll see them. They will be your Board of Selectmen tomorrow. We're looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. I guess it comes down to me then. One thing I did want to talk about was our meeting on Saturday. We sat down with the three major boards in town, which is really healthy as far as I'm concerned. The Finance Commission, the Selectmen's Office, and the School Committee. The three big committees. And we try to come to some kind of an agreement on a memorandum of agreement going forward. And we didn't come to any firm conclusion. I would like to know if the board would like to entertain, we were all there, entertain any agreement to maybe perhaps agree to this memorandum of agreement or understanding in concept or otherwise?
I think you have a copy. The manager redid change the title to, I think most appropriately, a pledge.
Right.
Stop talking about MOU, people don't know what we're talking about usually, but it's a pledge to the voters that if they choose to pass the override, how we will jointly conduct the town's business to make this override last 5 or more years. I don't think we pledged more than 5 years because I don't think that's reasonable, but hopefully we could go 9 or more years as Arlington has. But I've read that pledge as the manager has rewritten it. Sounds to me, as I can best recall, that it reflects the comments that the various people made on Saturday. It's relatively simple and straightforward. And unless people want to hold off, if they haven't seen a copy, I'd make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve of signing the pledge with the other two committees.
Second.
I have a motion to accept the memorandum of agreement, and I have a motion and a second. All in favor? What's that?
The pledge.
Pledge, I'm sorry. Pledge, call it what you want to call it. I wrote MOU on the top. And it's a pledge going forward, how we're going to handle ourselves appropriately in financial matters over the next 5 years as a result of this override and what we intend to do.
Once, if all 3 boards do sign it, once we get that signed, which we're expecting, then I'm sure we'll be making that public and available to the press and everyone else to get the word across what we have in fact pledged to in handling the town's finances.
So I don't know if the other 2 boards have done anything yet, but,
So how do we? They've received the document, sorry, they haven't had a chance to meet yet.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Sir,
I would just say to put in that motion for the chairman to sign on our behalf.
Authorize and direct the chair.
okay. So I have a motion, amended motion, and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? So that takes care of that. And I have no further business tonight, but I would like to say one quick thing. You talked about vaping and so on and so on. Mr. Hajar discussed vaping, and I was thinking maybe if the board is in some kind of agreement here, at a future date, maybe we should have either somebody from Impact Norwood or the Board of Health, Segalities, to discuss the downsides, the negative sides of vaping. I don't think a lot of young people today understand how serious it is to be vaping. Am I?
That's a good idea.
Ms. Reese had already had some offline discussions with me, and I recommended that she might want to come before the full board just after the annual election, annual town meeting and so forth, so.
I think it would be very beneficial, because
And you've already been speaking.
I think we have an obligation to let people know. If we know, we should let them know how serious this is, nicotine-wise and everything else. It's not good.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's ponder on that. We'll come back in a couple of weeks, and maybe we can set a date with the appropriate parties to have them before the board.
Absolutely.
Are you laughing at me or just smiling?
Smiling.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
He's tired, he's waiting for that.
If I have, I know, everybody's in a rush. So if I have nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second. One question.
Capital outlay, can we fix that? Because I know he's gonna be bringing.
We have to interview.
In 2 weeks.
It's fine.
Are they gonna be meeting soon? Shall we make an appointment before we adjourn? No, you want to table?
Well, can you talk about want to approve the plan?
No,
No,
Well, we
the appointment.
A member.
You presented it to the Finance Commission, and they approved it last
Yes, last night.
last night.
We are talking about the.
And I know the board has talked about the plan, but never really took any positions. They just wanted to review what was going to be discussed. But Tom has actually presented to it. And I just thought that obviously at some point we need to before.
We'll put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
So moved.
Second?
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll address that. So I have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Of course. All opposed? Unanimous. We will not be meeting next week on the 16th. We are meeting 2 weeks from now. The reason being there are 5 Tuesdays in the month. We normally only meet on a 4-week schedule. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.